All right, hey guys, what's up? It's Robert. I wanted to do a quick little video today about some of my tips for writing. I was about to come downstairs here to my office and get a little bit of writing done on my current project that I'm working on, which is a book about dementia, so memory conditions, conditions of aging, things like that. I'm in the middle of a book that is trying to explain those things in plain language, sort of like my other books. Now, a little bit of my background, if you don't know, I do have two published books out. They're books on anxiety and depression, and they're books that are basically plain language, sort of funny, practical tips for defeating depression and anxiety. They're in the Hardcore Self-Help book series, and they're really popular. They're some of the best-selling books on Amazon. They're at the top of their categories for anxiety and for depression. So it's something that I've had some success with. And so I like to think of myself as not an authority, but somebody who has had writing work out well for them. It's a primary part of how I make my living. So before I got into the session of writing that I'm about to do right now, I thought I would share with you 5 tips that I have for doing the best writing that you can if it's something that you're interested in doing. So my number one tip, primary thing, is don't wait. This is something that a lot of people do. They make the mistake of trying to wait for the perfect conditions, like the perfect setting, the perfect time, the perfect tea, the perfect music, the perfect keyboard, all these different things. They wait for the perfect condition. They wait for inspiration. They wait for motivation to hit them before sitting down and writing. The thing is, those perfect conditions rarely come about. So usually what happens is you just don't get a damn thing done. So my advice to you would be to don't wait. If you want to write, just write. Go for it. The writing is something that you don't want to make as a slave to these other things. You don't want to make your writing potential a slave to these perfect conditions. You want to be able to write in all these different situations, whether you're on a train, whether you're at home in your office, whether you're on the couch while the TV's going. The last one might be a bit of a stretch for some of us who can't multitask so well, but basically you want to be able to write in a variety of conditions. So don't restrict yourself to only writing in these perfect conditions, because you're going to train yourself to be very, very sort of spoiled in that regard. Now, it will take practice to be able to sit down and just let words come out, but that's the point. You need to give yourself the chance to sit down, let those words come out. They're not going to be perfect at first. They're never going to be perfect, but the more you give yourself the chance to try, without, giving yourself all these perfect conditions, the better off you're going to be. So just do it. Don't wait. Go for it. Start writing right now. Now, the second tip that I have is an interesting one. This is one that works really well for me, and that is to trail off at the end of a sentence. That's something that I picked up from, I think it was Hemingway. He said, always end in the middle of a sentence so that you can pick up from where you left off. I often do that. And I also really often extend this out and I do an outline. So when I finish my writing for the day, before I close out the document, which is usually like a Google Doc or something like that, maybe an Evernote, I write a few bullet points of what I'm planning to write next. Reason being is sometimes it's really hard to get going. It can be really hard to just sit down and start right from scratch, not having written anything in the day. And so what having an outline or stopping in the middle of a sentence does for you is it sort of primes the pump, and it lets you start from where you left off without having to read through the last paragraph and try to get back into it, because that can take up some valuable time. And it can be hard for that inspiration to strike, or the knowledge or whatever it is that you're looking for to start writing. It can be hard when you don't have anywhere to start from. So what I would say is, if you can, trail off in the middle of a sentence. If not, that's fine, but at least give yourself an outline, maybe 5 bullet points of what's coming up next. So oftentimes in this book that I'm writing right now, this is obviously a nonfiction book, so it's a little bit different, but I'll trail off and say, the characteristics of Parkinson's disease can be varied, ... And then in the next section, I'll have a few bullet points that say, talk about the physical symptoms, such as tremor, such as balance issues, such as walking issues, and then cognitive difficulties, and then have a few bullet points there. And that's all the stuff that I'm going to write about in the next, writing session. If this was a fiction, you can start off, you could do the same thing. You could end off in the middle of a sentence, like, when Jonathan walked into the room, he noticed that he actually wasn't alone, ... And then you make a few bullet points. He noticed that the dog was there. The dog reminded him of his old dog, whatever. Write a few bullet points of what's coming up next. That was just off the top of my head, so I'm sorry that was so terrible. But that's my tip. Trail off, leave yourself an outline to pick up from. Third tip is an interesting one. This is one that is a bit personal in terms of it's worked really well for me. It's not going to work well for everybody. The first part of this tip should work for most people if you're somebody who likes to listen to music while you're writing. It's going to be better for you to listen to instrumental music rather than music with lyrics. Now, listening to music with lyrics is going to be easier while you're writing than it is while you're reading, because you're using receptive language when you're listening to music, especially if you know the lyrics already. And, you know, when you're reading also, you're trying to basically compete for that receptive language. It's a little bit easier when you're using your expressive language and writing while listening to words as well, but it still sort of makes it difficult. It kind of crosses paths there. So what I would suggest is listen to instrumental music. One thing that I really like to do is listen to instrumental versions of songs that I like. So for instance, you know, there's a song by Churches, the band Churches, that I really like. It's called Downside of Me. And it has a beat that I really like, and I could hear it in my head, the words sort of, but it doesn't intrude the same way. So I'll listen to that instrumental version, and I really like doing that. So it's less distracting, lets you focus on the words. Now, if you do want to listen to music with words, one thing that I would suggest is trying out one song on repeat. I know it sounds kind of maddening, but it can be really, really powerful and effective, because what you do is you have one song repeating over and over and over again, and it becomes sort of a background soundtrack to your writing session. You know you don't need to listen closely because it's playing over and over again, and it keeps you in the same vibe, the same mode, the same even beats per minute, right? You're still going at the same pace and internal rhythm. And it can become something like a mantra where it's just going over and over and over again. I've written some of my best stuff just listening to the same song on repeat. And it doesn't have to be the same song every time, but for a given session, you might pick one song that you're just really vibing with and play that on repeat over and over and over again. So on Spotify, which is what I use, you just click the repeat button twice and it'll have a little 1 over the circle repeat button. And that means it's just doing the same song over and over again. You can do the same thing with YouTube videos. I know there are some tools out there that can, you know, make the YouTube video repeat. Otherwise, you can just keep clicking the button. But I definitely prefer to have it automatically repeating, because then it just fades into the background, like I said, and it becomes sort of a soundtrack for what you're doing. So either instrumental music or the same song over and over again as a mantra. Try those out. The fourth tip that I have for you is to block out some time to write and avoid other things during those sessions. This is really hard for people in this day and age. What I'm talking about is putting away the phone, not logging into your social media on the computer, just writing, and doing that for like an hour, just a solid block of an hour. That's all you need. You can fit 1 hour into your day, I promise. So whether that means, you know, going in offline mode on your computer, going somewhere else to a coffee shop, whatever the case may be, give yourself 1 full hour without any distractions and try to write. Maybe you can't write good stuff, maybe the words aren't coming out, but you need to teach yourself to push through. Instead of getting writer's block, every time you have a slight misstep or can't find a word, what a lot of people do is they go, okay, I lost my train of thought, or I need to think about this further. Let me switch over to social really quick and check my stuff, or check my email, or whatever, Instagram. So you need to break that habit and instead focus on trying to push through it and just keep going. You're really training yourself to write. Now, the quality of the words may not be the best, and maybe you'll come back and fine tune them later, but the point is, you're making the most of this time, and you'd be amazed at how much stuff you can actually get done in 1 hour if you just give yourself the chance. And the last piece of advice that I have for you for writing is do what works for you, and actually figure out what works for you. So all these tips, they may be good for you, they may be not. If they're not, then I want you to throw them away. The point is, you give it a shot, see how it affects you, see what it changes in terms of your productivity, in terms of your mood, in terms of how things work out, and just take note of that. And if it works, amplify it, do more of it. If it doesn't work, try something else, use a different strategy. So all this said, just do what works for you. But these are a few ideas. These 5 ideas hopefully would be helpful, for a few of you out there. I know they're really helpful for me when I go through my writing process. So that's all I have for you right now. If you're interested in following along with what I'm writing in terms of my current project, that dementia book, you can go to duffthepsych.com/dementia, and you can sign up for an email list to be among the first to know when it's available for pre-order, when it comes out, and stuff like that. But for now, I'm done. Thank you very much.